You've probably now seen the teaser trailer officially released by Marvel Studios for Avengers Doomsday, where it shows Chris Evans returning as Steve Rogers. He's back in the past in the very same house we last saw him, dancing with Peggy Carter. This time, we find out he has a child. Presumably, he had that child with Peggy. It says Steve Rogers will return in Avengers Doomsday. Notice that it does not say that Captain America will return in Avengers Doomsday. After all, like it or not, officially, we already know that Captain America will be returning in Doomsday as the Sam Wilson version of Captain America. I don't see that changing, although some people have celebrated Steve Rogers' return, hoping that he's going to come back as the original Cap. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think Marvel made their choice and decided that Sam will maintain the shield, although I very much like Sam Wilson and Anthony Mackie, who plays the character. I do prefer him as Falcon. I suspect that Steve's return will actually only further validate Sam as Captain America. Steve is the one who ultimately handed him the shield and the role. And I think Steve will just be Steve. Super strong, of course, but likely not playing Captain America anymore. Ultimately, this teaser didn't do much for me. Primarily because it feels like they're going back and sort of reheating leftovers, like I said in a previous video. Steve's story was told at the end of Endgame. It was done. I think it came to a satisfying conclusion. Endgame is not a perfect movie, but I think it is a decent conclusion to the Infinity Saga after so many years. And Steve's ending, I think, was one of the stronger aspects of Endgame. He got to end up with his girl and to live happily ever after. So to go back and then revisit that sometime later, I think undermines the magic of that ending, especially when he's clearly going to be called into service once again. So he's going to have to come out of retirement. Also, it's been long rumored that Steve would return in this manner because his traveling back in time to be with Peggy and returning the Infinity Stones was the temporal incursion that causes all manner of problems in the future. In some way affected the multiverse, and this, in some respect, gives rise to the future threat that is Doctor Doom. I don't like this creative decision because it undoes the happy ending somewhat of Endgame. I much prefer when things are left to our imagination, so I kind of wish they'd left well enough alone and just leave Steve in the past, happy with Peggy. But with so many recent creative wrong steps and bum notes in the MCU over the past 5 years, with several underwhelming movies and TV shows and a few box office failures, one has to ask, just because Steve Rogers will return, will the audience return also? The audience members who've checked out of the franchise some time ago, are they coming back as well? We know that Doomsday is going to be this big multiverse mashup, cameo fest. And I think the time-bending excuses that they're going to use to cram in as many heroes as possible on screen, it's likely going to result in just reams of endless expositionary scenes and confusing plot points. I think it's going to be very contrived in terms of how it's going to work. This film just sounds like a big mess to me, to be honest. And really just an excuse to give longtime fans a bunch of member berries and nostalgia bait to get them to go and see the movie. Audiences, I think, have become a bit wise to that. Of course, DC tried it with the cameo-heavy superhero movie The Flash, and that was a box office failure. So, you know, the lesson has to be learned there that you just can't throw some gimmicks on screen and then hope that people will show up and just mindlessly consume product. There has to be a reason for people to bother going to see the movie. Infinity War and Endgame were event movies that felt like the culmination of something big, you know, a very well-told story over many years. So they were building up to that conclusion. But Doomsday feels like a Hail Mary attempt to win back audiences. And although the return of Robert Downey Jr. will no doubt give the film a bit of a bump, can that really be enough to rejuvenate a franchise whose best days are behind it? And the very fact that the filmmakers are having to rely on bringing back RDJ and Chris Evans and the X-Men and others, it's all really an acknowledgement that the franchise best days are behind it. That's the point. This all feels like an attempt to cash in on past franchise glories. And certainly, although reactions to the teasers so far haven't been too negative, they haven't been overwhelmingly glowing either. Like, the enthusiasm just isn't quite there. We're a year away from the release of Avengers Doomsday. What are your thoughts on the film at this point? Thanks very much for watching. If I don't make another video between now and the end of the year, I just want to say Happy New Year. I hope you had a fantastic Christmas. Looking forward to catching you all again in 2026. Take care, guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.